Man United are back. They've done it. They've completed football again. They have beaten Liverpool 2-1, and this is the team that did it. Like this is how it looked. This is Erik Ten Hag's 4-2-3-1, which presses is a 4-2-4, and the word presses is important because they did. Because the big thing with United here is they dropped Cristiano Ronaldo, Harry Maguire was gone as well, in came Rafael Varane. Erik Ten Hag talked about what was going on, saying that Varane would bring you communication and agility and mobility in the back four. That's what you needed. But really what you saw was snap and bite. So you had Martinez was snapping into everyone, being aggressive. You had McTominay going and winning tackles. You had Dalot, who was clearly fired up. Sancho, Rashford, Fernandes, Elanga, everyone doing as much as they could out of possession to win the ball back. They didn't have much of the ball. Liverpool had far more possession, but United were really, really impressive out of possession, just with the levels of energy they could put in. But in context, Liverpool were weak. So this is not a strong team. Joe Gomez came in to partner Van Dijk. Big issues, particularly the spacing between the two centre-backs. We'll come in to speak about that. Particularly the relationship between Gomez and Alexander-Arnold. Another huge miss is having Henderson in the middle, not on the right, because when Alexander-Arnold goes forward, there's a big gap that normally he tends to cover over here. United's pressing, Liverpool probably didn't expect it. They weren't up to be able to deal with it, and they struggled throughout. But what we can look at is how Erik Ten Hag played with his team and what he did differently. So we know that tactically he wants to play in a certain way, and what he wants to play is building up from the back, that's what we think. But what we saw was a real difference in how United have built up in the first phase of play in this Liverpool game than we have in the previous two. Now, this is how David De Gea played his kicks out from the back against Brighton. You can see it's a lot of short balls out here, very close short passes. The long ones are getting, they're not keeping possession of the ball. That's what happened. Then against Brentford, now they were caught out a couple of times with these short passing out from the back moves. Erik Ten Hag said before the game that he told his players to play long. He wanted to play over the Brentford press. That's what he asked them to do. And you can see it, there are a few long passes out from here, but we know that they got caught out. We talked about it in previous videos. But look at the difference between this is Brighton, this is De Gea, this is against Brentford, here we go, and this is against Liverpool. This is a clear stylistic change. Get the ball the hell out of there and get it long. But look at the amount of volume of passes going towards this left side. Now, there's a key for this, because this part of the pitch is where Virgil van Dijk stays, and he's a very big man. Joe Gomez, not quite as good in the air. Alexander-Arnold, nowhere near as good in the air. And look where they're targeting, this exact bit. They're clearly targeting the left side of the pitch, and you saw it in possession as well, because look at this. This is where United had the majority of their attacking touches. The left third, they were focusing their efforts against Joe Gomez and Alexander-Arnold. This is the thing they were targeting here. Salah doesn't do much defending. Harvey Elliott is not really a defender, he's a playmaker, had a really good game still. But the distance between these two is absolutely key, and we see it in the goals and the chances that United created early on. So Sancho was trying to pin Robertson back, you had Elanga trying to pin Alexander-Arnold back to stop them being able to get forward, because if these guys can't get forward, especially Robertson, Liverpool are denied their width. And so what actually happened was, because they had no width, they weren't really able to stretch the play, so they couldn't get any forward passes going through the lines. So you see, if you've got no one forward, you can't really do anything with it. You're just kind of stuck in this area here. Milner and Henderson were struggling in possession. Firmino kept dropping back to help them out. That meant that Diaz was wanting to come inside to be like a central forward, but Robertson couldn't go because he was getting pinned back by Sancho, which meant they lost a whole bunch of play over here. So they're all congested, couldn't play. They really struggled to get out. And you saw it early in the game. So this is a chance that Elanga missed 10 minutes in. This is the midfield of Henderson, Milner, and Harvey Elliott's over here in the middle here, and they're very spaced out. There's no real cohesion. They should be much tighter together. Liverpool's structure wasn't great throughout most of this first half. But this is a transitional moment, and you can tell that because Alexander-Arnold is really high up the pitch. This is him, the right back. Now, Joe Gomez is here, having to cover basically for this wide forward Elanga. He's trying to deal with two jobs at once. He's got Virgil van Dijk over here. He's trying to cover all this, but the space between the centre backs is massive, and this happens a few times. This is not ideal whatsoever. So when Alexander-Arnold's here, normally what happens is Jordan Henderson comes across to cover. That's what he does, and Fabinho will be in here covering, making sure they've got an anchor. Basically, the structure has been taken apart, and Liverpool are in trouble. Now McTominay's on the ball. He fires a pass forward here towards Bruno Fernandes, who will win it. But the interesting thing here is that they're making a counter movement. Marcus Rashford's dropping from a higher position to come in to drag the defender out of position, which then leaves more space for Bruno Fernandes to attack. And there's actually the kind of thing that you might not see Ronaldo do, because he wants to be here to receive it, to pass it, to get into the box so he can be at the end of it. Very selfless from Rashford, taking space for someone else to attack. The ball comes in. Here's Bruno Fernandes playing between these two centre-backs. Joe Gomez is trying to recover to get into it here, but you see the problem. Because he's out of position and because Henderson's not there to cover, this is where the trouble is. It's Elanga, because when Bruno Fernandes gets here, slides in, wins the ball, really well done by him. It goes over to Elanga, who then takes the shot, hits the post. He's fallen over in his back. And there you go. That's the chance that missed. That was the lesson they should have learned. United are clearly targeting that side of the pitch. Gomez and Alexander-Arnold are struggling. That is the problem that they've got at the moment. And then comes the first goal. Again, the left-hand side. Malacia, the left-back's pushed right up. McTominay's up there as well. You can see they're quite condensed together. But it's Eriksen who pops up ahead of McTominay to play a 1-2 with Elanga. And they're targeting the specific spacing between these two players. Now, this gap is something they're looking at. He's trying to thread it through. Alexander-Arnold knows it's coming, but he can't stop it. It's threaded through by Eriksen, a great touch. Elanga gets in behind. Now the next problem that you can see is the spacing again between Gomez and Van Dijk. It's massive. This is too much. He should be somewhere around here. You should have a midfielder covering it. But because one player's making an error, other players are then adjusting their positions to try and correct that error. And you see it in the next slide as well. Elanga gets in, Joe Gomez comes across, naturally to try and block this and stop it. If he does, then his job's done. But because he's gone across, Alexander-Arnold has not gone back into his position to try and defend it. He has to do something, but that leaves Van Dijk defending two people's jobs at the same time. Also, the midfield structure is completely gone. Sancho's standing on his own. You should have Fabinho here if he was playing. That's where he'd been playing. He'd be there blocking this off. That's what you'd have. And you'd have Milner tighter somewhere else. It's just, the structure is all gone, but the spacing is bad. Now the ball comes in. I think Van Dijk is aware that he's covering for two centre-backs and knows Gomez is over here. You can see Milner is going to slide in. There's no need to go just yet. Hold position, try and block the shot. Sancho keeps great composure in the area, does Milner. Milner's gone out of the game. And then you've got Alexander-Arnold still just kind of jogging back. Joe Gomez starts to come back, but he's not in position. There's just no coverage. Van Dijk's trying to cover it. If Gomez had been here, if Alexander-Arnold had been here, then you'd have this bit blocked. Van Dijk would be more to the left, so you have better protection for the goalkeeper, who's down on the ground. It was a great finish from Sancho, but you see, if Van Dijk does decide to go and attack this and block it like he probably should go and do that, his decision is just to try and hold position, maintain shape and structure, because they've lost all of it, and you can see that if he goes out, the ball will simply come in here and they'll score anyway. So it's a tough decision, and they don't do it very well. And so that was the story of the first half. Man United attacking this left-hand side, ceding possession to Liverpool and attacking the space whenever they could. It was remarkably familiar and very, very similar to how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Man United teams used to play. This is exactly what they used to do and how they used to get results out of teams like Liverpool and Man City. They'd let the other team have possession, they'd wait for the mistake, they'd counter at pace, and they have players who are very good at doing exactly that. And then in the second half, Ten Hag made a tactical change, he says. Off went Elanga, on came Anthony Martial, and that put Rashford, who's had a couple of good games actually, he was unlucky a couple of times against both Brentford and Brighton, to play in this channel, because he knows that the spacing between Gomez and Alexander-Arnold is really, really troublesome. That's where he's attacking, which leads to one of the goals. And the same sort of thing, pressing high from the front, really aggressive at the back, making sure that Liverpool have absolutely no time on the ball. That's what they're doing. And it leads to a turnover deep in their own half, which leads to a very Ole Gunnar Solskjaer style counter-attack. The ball is knocked long. Man United are deep here, like you see. The ball comes in, Jordan Henderson, poor touch, doesn't control it, the ball bounces loose. This is Anthony Martial playing as the number 9 now. He drops in as soon as he receives this ball, you'll notice, so this is Henderson not making it. Rashford is standing completely still. As soon as the ball goes here, he goes. He knows this is his chance to get in behind, this is the space he can make up. And another interesting thing, if you imagine how teams like Man City and others are playing inverted fullbacks, if you had an inverted fullback here, you might be able to start this run or block his run from source, but Alexander-Arnold's out wide in this position. It's kind of an irrelevant thing, but it's just a little interesting tidbit as to why teams do that with inverted fullbacks. Rashford sprints on, gets in behind the last line after he evades a Van Dijk tackle. Really poor game from Van Dijk in this. Gets in behind and is 1v1 with Alisson. And now what he does is very clever, because Alisson is essentially trying to dare him to go here, because the most easy shot from this position as a right footer is to curl it round in the corner. That's what you'd naturally do. Open up your body, let the ball come round and nestle in the corner. But Rashford takes the bet and punts it past him into the near post. And Liverpool just couldn't get back in the game until a tactical change late on, where Erik Ten Hag took some substitutes on, changed things a little bit to try and maybe slow things down. It's a lot of energy they put into this game. The change he made was to go to more of a 4-4-2 diamond. He played Eriksen behind two forwards, Rashford and Martial up top, took off Sancho, and put on Fred. So what you had essentially was at certain times a 4. So you'd maybe have like Eriksen or Martial as the 4 here, and then when they're in possession, you'd have Eriksen behind two forwards. Lots of rotations, lots of movement. But it's a really good aggressive performance from Man United. Now they can maintain the attitude and energy and that aggression. They have the chance to then work on the tactical things and move away from the Solskjaer counter-attack tactics that have been what has made them work for ages. The whole point of Solskjaer's change from a counter-attack to possession is that if you don't get chances on the counter-attack, teams sit deep themselves, you can't get any space to score, so you need to be better in possession. Ten Hag's teams are really good in possession. So if he's got the right attitude from his players, the high press works, and they start developing players like Casemiro coming into the team, then they'll be a lot better going forward. So I would say a very good one-off performance, but you need to have far more of them to say that anything has really changed just yet, because Man United have a habit of performing when they absolutely have to, and then it goes back to sort of normal. Anyway, that's Man United. A very good win, 2-1 against Liverpool, who are not having a good start to the season. More from us on Tifo IRL, but that soon. You should subscribe to find out when we do all the analyses. So have a lovely time. Goodbye now.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is where the Ralph Rangnick to Manchester United story broke, where a team of journalists have provided unrivaled coverage of Newcastle United's new ownership, and where dedicated writers cover every Premier League team no matter their place in the table. And you can try it free now for 30 days.